Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and so glad to have so many folks here today, and we're delighted for the folks, too, that are here in other capacities outside enjoying the beautiful morning air. My name is Jacob Stewart, and I have the pleasure of serving as president of the Central Florida Partnership. And it was 2 years ago in this exact room that we assembled the Central Florida Legislative Delegation. Now, our meeting today is designed slightly different than some protocols you may be accustomed to. First of all, we are most honored to have senators and House members that represent one or more precincts in the 7 counties of Central Florida. So, on behalf of everyone, may I ask you please to show our appreciation for our elected officials here today. I know on an early morning, and we're all dressed up in these suits and formal ways, it's hard for us to sometimes show enthusiasm for our elected officials. So what we're going to do is do this again. And what I'd like to do is ask all of us here to show our appreciation for those who are sitting at the table of honor. All right. All right. Thank you. Thank you. It goes to show that coaching never ends and that we can get there. Our presentations today, there will be 4 panels. Traditionally, delegation hearings are individuals that come before members of the Senate and the House. But here today, we have civic, business, and government leaders speaking to our regional delegation about regional priorities. And we want to be exceedingly respectful to the time not only of the men and women at the table of honor, but also to the men and women who have come and gathered to show their support. The panels today will deal with 4 important areas, and this is in on your agendas. But the first will be infrastructure and growth leadership. And during this panel, we'll get an update regarding the Central Florida Commuter Rail. And some of you in the audience, that is code for Sun Rail, a transforming opportunity not only for Central Florida, but for the future of Florida. That will be followed by business climate and competitiveness, and there will be an overview of Open for Business. 1 week from tomorrow, Open for Business will be in a different room with different leaders talking about how we as 7 counties can come together to put families back to work. The third panel is Civic and Governance Systems, focused on the development of a regional water strategy. Legislators know of the pressure this provides, and we as a region want to talk to our elected officials about the work that's ongoing here when it comes to this critical need for our state. The final panel will be innovation and economic development. I mean, that's the theme. It's jobs, jobs, and jobs. And we want to talk about here in Central Florida and how it rolls out across all of Florida, the entrepreneurial ecosystem, and how it contributes to Florida as a vibrant economic driver. And then following these 4 panels, we'll then invite the legislators, the senators and House members here, under the leadership of the chair, to have a regional conversation about what you've heard. And it's important for the audience to stay engaged, to hear what our elected officials think and say about the priorities that they are going to hear more about this morning. So, senators and House members, if I may, if I can turn your attention to the packets. Ladies and gentlemen, in your seats, you do not have all the information that our elected officials do, but I want to call it out, and much of it is on a table, an information table outside. First of all, you have the rules of the Central Florida Legislative Delegation that were adopted in this room on December the 15th, 2 years ago. Also, you have the regional priorities, not just of the Central Florida Partnership, more importantly, of these organizations across 7 counties that have come together over years to share with one another shared priorities. And then there are two brochures that we're very proud of. One is a photographic brochure showing all of the members of the Senate and House that are in our Central Florida Legislative Delegation. And I might say some of the photographs are more current than others. Just working with me on this, all right? Now, the purpose of this is many in the audience, when you see this, you've never seen your delegation either in print or here at the table. This is the new model, talking together as a region about a regional economy. There's another brochure there, too, that's important for you, and that is the Central Florida Congress of Regional Leaders. These 16 elected officials, county commissioners, mayors, city commissioners, and school board members convene on a regular basis to talk, too, about regional priorities. The chair of the Congress of Regional Leaders will be on one of the panels. And then, for the benefit and as a courtesy to our elected officials, you have bios for each of the panelists and presenters today to help us move through today's program. So let's begin. If I may, I want to introduce to you the chair of the Central Florida Partnership to provide greetings and to introduce the president of the University of Central Florida. Jeff Jonason is important to all of us in his leadership role today, but also in the leadership roles that he has enjoyed before. Jeff is immediate past president of the University of Florida Alumni Association. He's past president of the Boy Scouts of America of Central Florida and is now chairman of the Central Florida Partnership. In that role, that is chair of the holding company, and within the holding company, there is my region, Orlando Inc., Leadership Orlando, and Business Force. So, ladies and gentlemen, will you please join me in welcoming Jeff Jonason, chair of the Central Florida Partnership.
Thank you, Jacob. Thank you, senators, representatives. As the first year of my term as chairman of the Central Florida Partnership comes to an end, I am encouraged by the phenomenal progress that we've made in bringing ideas to results for our region. The Central Florida Partnership is a collaborative of business leaders committed to procuring a better tomorrow for Central Florida and Central Florida's 7 counties, Brevard, Lake, Orange, Osceola, Polk, Seminole, and Volusia, and the more than 86 cities across our region. The Central Florida Partnership was created just 4 years ago to anticipate the complexities of the global market, of growth and collaboration, and to respond with timely and appropriate action as a region. The partnership is an essential place for businesses to convene, set priorities, address our region's toughest challenges, and identify our greatest opportunities. We're thoughtful leaders united by a single guiding principle that we have both the power and the responsibility to make change happen. And since the partnership was established, we have witnessed significant and positive changes and have been instrumental in guiding some of these efforts. Among these accomplishments are the overwhelming defeat of Amendment 4 through the Vote No on 4 campaign, the opening of the Amway Center, which is the first of 3 regional assets advanced through Project Hometown, with the second, the Dr. Phillips Center for the Performing Arts, now under construction, and the third, the renovation of the Florida Citrus Bowl, soon to follow. Other successes include the direct election of the first school board chairman for Orange County Public Schools, our advocacy for Sunrail, and our vocal support for the UCF College of Medicine and for USF Polytechnic. Through our programs and outreach, we've advocated innovation, entrepreneurship, regional airports, seaports, and spaceport, the Wekiva Parkway, the development of a regional water strategy, and a Florida super region, making critical connections between Tampa Bay and Central Florida. All the while, we've maintained our dedication to Central Florida's rich history of hospitality, healthcare, education, agriculture, and research. Also of critical import to our region and our state is the proposed legislation regarding the expansion of casino gambling in Florida, which we'll all consider early next year. In that regard, I should point out that the Board of Directors of the Central Florida Partnership recently passed a resolution of unanimous support for no further expansion of casinos in Florida. And that's a high priority for us that we'll be coming to talk to you about in the coming session. All of this work would not have been accomplished without the development and nurturing of strong regional partnerships. Today, we will welcome the president of what he likes to call the Partnership University, because he realizes the value and power of working together. During his inaugural speech in 1992 as the University of Central Florida's 4th president, Dr. John C. Hitt proclaimed, "I fervently believe that UCF will become America's leading metropolitan university. With your help and support, we'll move forward together in partnership to write the next chapter in the saga of a university destined for greatness." Under President Hitt's direction during these last 2 decades, UCF has become the largest university in Florida and the 2nd largest in the country, serving 11 Central Florida counties with 10 regional campuses and 3 satellite campuses. We're also happy that President Hitt serves on the board of directors of the Central Florida Partnership. The best predictors of future success are the accomplishments of our past, and if the Central Florida Partnership and our next speaker have anything to say about it, we're on the right track for the Central Florida region. Please join me in welcoming our host, President John Hitt.
Well, thank you, Jeff, for that very kind and gracious introduction. Today, we are very pleased to host many of our area lawmakers and other distinguished guests. Normally at this event, Dan Holzenbeck keeps the length of my remarks on a tight leash. This morning, however, Dan is in California. And I've told Jacob that I'll do my best to hold my remarks under 45 minutes. No, not really. I don't want to see Jake having chest pains over there, so I'll move a little more quickly. I'm very proud that Central Florida shines as a national example of how state government, communities, and higher education can unite to grow high-paying jobs, to boost the tax base, and to advance prosperity. 15 years ago, you allocated money to launch a high-tech corridor council where companies could team with the best and brightest university talent to develop innovations and new technologies. What a wise and visionary move that was that you made. With UCF, the University of South Florida, and the University of Florida anchoring the research, that 23-county Florida High-Tech Corridor Council excels in driving Florida's knowledge-based economy. The Council's Matching Grants Research Program has led to 3,276 jobs in the corridor counties, with a direct and indirect economic impact of $1.3 billion. Matching grants of more than $56 million have enabled approximately 400 area companies to pursue 1,200 applied research projects. And those funds leveraged approximately $1 billion in matching corporate and federal money. Through these matching funds, Florida's investment in the Council has realized an 18-to-1 return for each tax dollar spent. Folks, that's economic development with impact. Yet, the Council represents only one triumph in the remarkable success story of our partnership. In 2006, you spearheaded the investment of public funds to create the UCF College of Medicine and spur a medical city at Lake Nona. In doing so, you affirmed the hard work and foresight of many public and private institutions that joined forces with UCF in this effort. And you fuel the biggest economic game changer for Central Florida since Disney World. I see my friend Sesh Thacker sitting over there, and I look back, Sesh, to it's only been about 5 years, you know, that we got that project rolling, and we certainly could not have done it without the great support of Sesh, Joe Lewis, and Tavistock Group. Today, the medical city thrives with more than $2 billion of construction committed. Much of that construction is complete or very nearly so, and we're well on our way toward reaching the 30,000 jobs and $7.6 billion in annual regional impact expected from the medical city by 2018. A study I commissioned to examine the related economic effects puts the return on investment at $13.50 for every tax dollar spent. Once again, your faith in the power of partnerships with UCF has paid off and it will continue to do so at Lake Nona for many, many years to come. Another way you've helped us to reinvent the Florida economy is through the GrowFL program. This UCF-administered effort helps second-stage companies grow to the next level. Since the legislature started this program in 2009, GrowFL has helped to generate more than 3,200 jobs statewide and to create a $510 million annual economic impact. And let's not forget that these companies have boosted state and local tax revenues by $18.7 million. For every dollar invested by the state, this program returns $5.50 in economic benefits. Representative Mike Horner, we thank you and your legislative colleagues who championed funding for GrowFL. Last year's budget may not have been what any of us desired, but we're so appreciative of your efforts, thoughtfulness, and continued support as lawmakers. Meanwhile, UCF's pioneering work to commercialize technology continues to help stimulate local economies throughout our region. In partnership with Volusia County at Daytona Beach International Airport, this summer we celebrated the opening of our 9th UCF Business Incubation Program to help grow small businesses. In the past 2 years, in the midst of troubling economic times, the UCF Incubation Program has helped create more than 1,000 new jobs. In the metropolitan Orlando region, earnings from these jobs exceeds $46 million annually, and every dollar invested by these local governments returns approximately 4.5 times that amount to invigorate their communities. Of course, nothing is more important to the future and prosperity of Florida than having a highly educated workforce, and UCF is proudly doing its part to provide those educated workers. We conferred a record 13,353 degrees last year. The vast majority of these degree holders will live and work in Central Florida. Earlier, Jake had some very inspiring words about a regional outlook. Let me just remind all of us that UCF is our region's regional research university, and that with a national and international impact. We have chosen over the years to make our significant investments in programs of teaching, research, and service in fields that really impact the regional economy of Central Florida. So it's no accident that you see our College of Optics and Photonics, the Institute for Simulation and Training, the Rosen College of Hospitality Management, the medical school out in Medical City at Lake Nona. We do that deliberately, and it pays off. Let me just mention one fact, a very specific one. I was looking the other day at enrollments in our College of Engineering and Computer Science. There's been some interest recently in how STEM enrollments are going nationwide and in Florida. Just for reference, in 2008, the enrollment in the College of Engineering and Computer Science was 4,468. Now, that's a lot of engineers and computer scientists. But by 2011, the enrollment was 6,267. That's an increase of 1,799 students, or 40.3%. So STEM enrollments are doing well at UCF, and I think that augurs well for the economic future of our region. As partners, we make Central Florida a can-do place to be. We're transforming thousands of lives, energizing our local economy, and elevating Florida's role in the world marketplace of the 21st century. In the months and years ahead, we're excited about achieving more great things with you. Thank you for being such great friends of UCF. Thank you for backing higher education in Florida. We appreciate all that you do, and we ask for your continued support and partnership. God bless you all. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, it would be, as John has provided greetings to us, it would now be appropriate that the chair of the Central Florida Delegation provide greetings. We all know him, and I'll be presenting to all but introducing to some Senator Mike Herodopoulos, who currently serves as president of the Florida Senate, representing District 26, and it includes Brevard, Indian River, Osceola, St. Lucie counties. But Mike, as you know, and you and I have talked, you represent all of Florida. All of you do. It's so important to hold that together. Ladies and gentlemen, for his greetings, right from there, Mike, if you don't mind, please join me in saying welcome to Senator Mike Herodopoulos, Chair of the Delegation.
Good morning. Thank you, Jacob, very much. So much is changing on this campus, my GPS sent me to the wrong place. So it's great to be here. I spoke with a speaker yesterday, and we are progressing, of course, with hopefully a successful session, despite all the challenges that our great state faces. I think we all recognize as we went into this session last year the remarkable challenges we faced. When Governor Scott took office, our unemployment rate in the state was right at 12%. We faced roughly a $4 billion budget and challenges with pension, Medicaid, education, and the list goes on. And there's been remarkable challenges. But because of your good ideas that we received last spring and we moved through the year, I'm happy to report that we're one of the only states, if not the only state, that actually balanced its budget last year without raising taxes, without raising fees. And since Governor Scott took office in this new legislature, we've reduced the unemployment rate from roughly 12% down to about 10.3%. But as every business person in this room knows, we still have a heck of a long way to go. But our overriding goal, not only today, but I think for the years to come, will be very simple. How do we make sure that Florida is the best place to do business and create jobs and opportunities? And I think we all know, especially myself as a college professor, myself for almost 20 years, we know that a great education is key to that, and making sure that the employers in the room feel confident that when they get a college graduate, or high school graduate for that matter, from Florida, that they can have the confidence that they can go to work from day one. I know all the legislators here are committed to that this year and balancing the budget once again this year and making Florida the most family-friendly and business-friendly state in the union. And so we really look forward to your ideas today, because the best ideas are not coming out of Washington, obviously. And more importantly, they're coming from people in this room, the people who make Florida work every day and provide those opportunities. And we're going to do everything we can to make sure that the red tape that has been in your way in the past is removed. And I know Governor Scott is, in fact, in Orlando today talking about those very ideas and talking about some of the new emerging businesses that are coming to Florida. But we also care about those businesses that are already here in Central Florida. And so on behalf of the legislature, and I guess as Speaker Buchanan is not here, we are really grateful for this type of meeting. It helps us get into the right mindset as we look forward to the session, which begins early this year on the 10th of January. So I look forward to a very thoughtful discussion. I appreciate all the members of the House and Senate to be here. And Jacob, thanks again for this opportunity. It's been really fruitful, and we hope to build on that in the years to come.
Our pleasure. Now, Senator, you will be invited to take the podium after our quick presentations to lead the conversation with senators and House members. And if I can, while the panel is assembling here, if you'll, the first panel, if you'll come up, let me just say, there are at your places, you heard Dr. Hitt talk about this super region. There's a magazine there called Forward Florida. And I particularly want to compliment the Tampa Bay Partnership. The Tampa Bay Partnership and the Central Florida Partnership are working to hold together Florida's super region. And that magazine there that's published on a regular basis now, very different than a year ago, is all about us working together. 13 counties, coast to coast. It's very exciting, and you'll see some of the projects we're working on together. All right, picking up on what the Senator said, we now want to turn to infrastructure and growth leadership. Once again, kind of being the rule keeper here, we're going to just have these panels quickly, and then, Mike, you'll be invited to lead a conversation. Each panel will be guided by a facilitator, and the first facilitator it's my pleasure to present is Mark Brewer, President and CEO of the Community Foundation of Central Florida. Mark is an extraordinary leader and has made changing part of his culture here in Central Florida. Very special. He's known well across the Central Florida community and has provided up to date 30 nonprofit boards in the past 2 years to help facilitate them as they too change in this transforming time in which we find ourselves. So ladies and gentlemen, please join me in saying welcome to Mark Brewer. Mark?
Thank you, Jacob. Good morning, senators and representatives, and ladies and gentlemen. I have the honor of being the facilitator of a panel that literally needs no introduction, although their bios are in your package. The Honorable Mayor Buddy Dyer, as you all know. In some days, he's the most popular man in Central Florida. Today, the most popular man in Central Florida is probably Alex Martins, who is fresh off a 153-day vacation, ready to go back to work today, president of the Orlando Magic.
And he's now open for business.
Open for business. And Seth Thacker, as you may already know, is a visionary. His company is a visionary, and he is the catalyst behind the place that we all like to call Lake Nona here, but it's a very important part of Medical City. Now, we want to talk a little bit about transportation today and get an update for all of you on where we are. And Mayor Dyer, can I start with you? As the visionary behind Sunrail, we're there. We're ready to start. What does this look like for economic development, for construction, for jobs?
Well, let me start by thanking the members here for their service and also for the legislation that enabled us to move forward several years ago with Sunrail, and it's probably the most important transportation project that we've had in a decade here in Central Florida. And the immediate impact is 13,000 or so construction jobs over the next 3 years, about $1.5 billion of economic impact, and then we're already seeing the transformational nature of the transit-oriented development that's going to spring up around each of the station stops just in the downtown area. Florida Hospital's making a substantial investment, Orlando Health. Alex is working on a project that could be a $100 million development associated with the Church Street station stop, and then Rita Development has announced a $200 million project at the site where all the TV stations set up for the trial of the century, right, a couple of months ago. So immediate economic and long-term economic impact.
Jacob mentioned that the Tampa Bay region and the Central Florida region together, the 10th largest super region in the nation, and the only one without rail. And so as we start thinking about the future, construction, Alex, is on everybody's mind. And what role will this transportation, what role will Sunrail play in this process?
Well, I think Sunrail will play an enormous role in construction. It's probably the one significant construction project that we now have on the books, for the future. I don't think anyone in this room is surprised by the fact that our construction industry has taken an enormous hit, during these economic times. We just heard from an economist yesterday that it is the one industry in the state of Florida that has taken the largest hit during these economic times, and at this stage has not really begun to come back yet. So I think Sunrail, through the construction of stations, through the construction of a lot of these transportation-oriented developments that are on the books now, is really going to help boost our construction industry over the course of the next couple of years. We have our two largest healthcare providers in Central Florida, Orlando Health and Florida Hospital, who have significant developments on the books and in some cases already started that are going to be centered around the station stops on their campuses. The Tupperware Corporation has a significant development that they are going to have under construction around the stop at the Tupperware station. And then there are the other multiple private developments that are contemplated and are already on the books to take place in places like Altamont Springs and beyond. So this is going to be an enormous boost to our construction industry at a time when it needs it the most, when construction has virtually come to a stop in our state.
This also has an impact on people in the nonprofit sector where I toil. Quality of life requires transportation and access to things that bring quality of life. Sesh, you work for a company that works internationally, and as Lake Nona, specifically Medical City, has to compete to bring people here on the international stage, what role does transportation play in the eyes of people who are looking at Central Florida as a place to move and grow?
I think that in this new world order, one has to think globally, right? We all compete for talent globally, and this is where we're all raising our families. It's important for a lot of reasons that we continue to pursue developing a world-class, globally attractive, great region. And the bottom line for developing a great city or region is that vision matters. To truly make a difference in people's lives involves a vision. and that takes visionaries. Every major world-class real city that I can think of or have been to has rail. Orlando, it's one of Florida's most recognized windows to the world, and it deserves, we deserve, to have what world-class real cities have. You know, look at Disney. Their planning was brilliant. Think about how proud they were of all the experiences they had created all over their property. A rail system, even in its infancy stages, is iconic. It's a symbol of innovation and growth. I wonder how long the conversation would have lasted if someone had said, hey, let's just use buses and taxis to connect the people in the parks. When people travel here from all the other great cities, they will make judgments about how we move people from one experience to another. At Lake Nona, we're not even getting a station on the Sunrail route, but we understand that in order to feel the success of a jobs base, the success of this cluster, we really need a collaborative transportation strategy. At Medical City, we're also focused on creating ecosystems for healthy communities. A transportation system is to a community what the circulatory system is for our body. It might not be sexy, but listen, don't expect to grow or be healthy without it. I like to keep things simple. If you want to break down economic development concepts or even try to figure out how to live healthier, happier lives, I think of one word, connect. How do we connect? How do we collaborate? How do we attract the right resources and grow? We have to connect. Great countries connect their cities, great cities connect their community assets, and great organizations connect their most precious assets, people. And if you want to break it down, people's health, the very essence of a person's health is their circulatory system, how their organs connect to one another. I just think of rail as the obvious next phase of our transportation or circulatory system for Central Florida. I think Central Florida's transportation policy should be more than just a bus company.
Thanks, Sesh. Mayor, we're all now at a point where we're ready to start moving. Is there a model that we could look at that'll give us some feeling for what this is going to look like as it comes online and it works? You've been around the country to look at several of these. What's our best kind of litmus test for what we can expect in the future?
Salt Lake City, if you've been out there and traveled either on their light rail or their commuter rail, is a great example. University of Utah is on that line, and they had a campus that was overcrowded. They had trouble with it, surrounding neighborhoods, because students' cars were parked in neighborhoods. They got 4 commuter rail stops and were able to turn surface parking lots on campus into new buildings. And about 40% of their students now commute by commuter rail out to the university. So I think that the ridership numbers that we have are understated, and it's going to be a huge success. And we're going to make sure that part of the components of moving forward is a marketing plan, engaging employers to incentivize their employees to use commuter rail. Tupperware is a good example of already thinking about doing that. And just while I have the floor, I want to acknowledge Duran Downs. Duran out there? She is. Our DOT Regional Secretary. They're actually doing the construction work, and we should have a groundbreaking in the next month or so, right, Duran?
I see a thumbs up. That's good. Give us an idea, Alex. Your downtown project, this is certainly going to be helpful for, but this is also an indication of how not just economic development, but construction changes when rail hubs are in place. What do you see for the future for how we develop, not just the downtown, but the regional places that we're going to be serving on the Sunrail route? How's that going to change economic development?
Well, I think if you study other rail systems around the country, and particularly, their infancy and when they were first constructed, you see clusters of economic development begin around these individual stations. And it's not just downtown stations, it's suburban stations. I went to school in the Philadelphia area, and we had the main line rail system that took you from the western suburbs of Philadelphia right into downtown. And at every station stop, you had retail, you had residential, restaurants, and they were clustered around these station stops. I think we'll find the same thing occur, here in Central Florida around our Sunrail stops, and as the line grows, hopefully, into other areas, you will start to see what, the buzzword is transit-oriented development. But the reality is that around these stations, because of the critical mass of people that come to the stations on a daily basis, business will go there. Business goes to where there's critical mass. And, as we built our new Amway Center, we studied a lot of developments relative to arenas in other cities in the core of downtowns around America. And a lot of them were associated with rail stops. And after, those arenas and rail stops were constructed, there was significant development around both those arenas and rail stops in those downtowns. And in a lot of cases like Nashville, Columbus, Memphis, it really rejuvenated, revitalized their downtowns because of those two elements, the element of a new sports and entertainment facility as well as a new rail stop in the core of their downtowns.
Sesh, you spoke very eloquently a minute ago about what's next. Business, do you think that they will engage this process? Do you think this is something that the business community will benefit from and will help to grow once it's in place?
Listen, one has to think of this as a multi-phased initiative. This is phase one. It's just the beginning. Remember when all we had was I-4? Think I-4 many years ago when it was just put in. That was just the spine. And as the future unfolds, Sunrail will grow into a network in the same way I-4 has grown into a network of great roads. At Lake Nona, in about 6 or 7 years, with the over $2 billion of active construction or economic development projects, even in this economy, we don't know where else in the country this kind of commitment exists, but it exists with two simple premises: connect and collaborate. Our biggest challenge with economic development projects is landing the right people. And healthy growth is really about recruiting. Recruiting requires an enormous amount of focus. So far, there's been hundreds of jobs created, another few thousand to come, especially with the 3 facilities opening up next year. And there's a lot of recruitment activity going on, and all the anchor partners are collaborating. And when we're dealing with this new talent, one of the most important things asked about or cited is transportation. It's important even for the 16,500 employees at the largest airport in the state, which is right next door. As I think about it, it was always in the plan. What everyone is counting on is a collaborative, comprehensive transportation strategy. I mean, for legislators, so many of you have told me from all over the state that the most convenient place, really, to hold a meeting for you is in Orlando. It's in the middle of the state. The airport is an amazing first impression for any traveler. And now we're talking about laying the groundwork, the infrastructure for bringing everyone to you easily. It makes it so much easier to connect. Rail will become known as the catalyst for what really has helped us to connect. And what should be most exciting for all of us is that it's just the beginning.
Thank you, Sesh. The key to the future. The mayor has the key to the city, and Alex has the keys to the arena, and we want to let him get to work. So thank you all very much. Jacob?
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I want to turn your attention now. All of the introductions are handled on the agenda, and the bios are in your packet. So let me ask the next panel to take its place as I have the pleasure of introducing the facilitator. Shelley Lawton is president of myregion.org, and in many ways breathes life into it every day, and has done so now for almost 12 years. Shelley is also the project director of How Shall We Grow? It really got us in many ways where we are today. And so when you begin to talk, like Sesh was saying, about connecting for global competitiveness, that's Florida's super region. Shelley was also project director of that, and she is project director for Open for Business. Join me in saying welcome to Shelley Lawton, president of My Region. Shelley?
Thank you. I'm so honored to be in front of you today and helping guide the conversation of this incredible panel you see before you. I've already been struck by the numbers of themes that we've heard that relate to what we're getting ready to talk about, Open for Business. whether it's Jeff's comments about making sure that we have the power and the ability to affect change here in Central Florida, or Senator Herodopoulos talking about Florida wanting to be the most business-friendly climate in the state. About a year ago, at this very time, business organizations in Central Florida came together to say we could do something to affect change in Central Florida, to not wait for the economy to change, but to really look at the business climate issues here in Central Florida and do something about that. And in front of you today are 3 leaders who have helped shepherd and guide this effort over this last year. We have Brian Butler, who's the CEO and president of JBC Construction. We have Gary Brune, who is not only the mayor of the town of Windermere, but is here serving as the chair of the Congress of Regional Leaders. And finally, we have Rick Weddle, who is the CEO and Chief Officer of the Metro Orlando Economic Development Organization. I'm so sorry, Rick. And they're here to talk to you about how can we affect change here as a region on business climate issues. Brian, if I could start with you, please. You served as one of the co-chairs on a regional work group that looked at what we could do to affect the regulatory barriers so businesses like yours could really increase their ability to add jobs and build a viable economy. Can you speak about what you have found are some of those regulatory issues that are most critical that we need to work on together?
Certainly, Shelley. Thank you and good morning. I'd like to say that I was just one of the many volunteers, and we had organizations from the Home Builders Association, from the realtors, from others, and I am the chair-elect of Associated Builders and Contractors, so I'll try to represent all of the 500 and something members of the Associated Builders and Contractors who deal with very much the same issues that I do with my firm. We, in our look at things, really narrowed it down, looking at things from a local level, from some other state and national issues. There were 5 or 6 common themes throughout with regarding barriers to doing work. And those things from the permitting side, we asked, again, permit us to do work, dealt with customer service focus, single points of contact, ombudsmen, a triage system. You imagine, a commercial development versus residential renovation. Someone has to deal with a porch addition where somebody else might have a very substantial commercial project that needs to go that will put people to work. Electronic filing, e-commerce is a thing that is now becoming more and more common. Measurable time frames for when a project starts or when someone has submitted for a permit, getting that application approved. And then one of the other things that we'll talk a little bit more about is even the simplified submittal forms. Just as you heard from the panelists before, in Central Florida, many of us obviously live in Central Florida, but our places of where we conduct business are outside of just simply the city limits of Orlando, per se. So if our office happens to be downtown, and on Monday I might, with my people, have to drive 30 to 60 miles, and now I've passed 2 or 3 different municipalities, and those 2 or 3 different municipalities have a different game plan or process in which you have to submit for permitting. If it's Tuesday, you happen to be in Polk County, in Albandale, or Wednesday, I'm in Lakeland. So they have different processes and different things, and so for us, some of the barriers to get our individuals or our employees back to work is there are different sets of rules, even though you happen to essentially do the same thing in each particular area that you do this.
So let me summarize very quickly what that means. In our region, we have 7 counties and 86 cities. And what we heard from the business community, and you heard Alex Martin talk about this earlier, to get people back to work efficiently, Imagine if, as Brian talked about it, we could develop a consistent approach to permitting, that would actually bring dollars to the bottom line for companies like Brian's, who are trying to put people back to work. So Mayor, let me ask you then, if that is the issue that businesses see as most critical, identifying regulatory issues where we can have and expect more consistency, how possible is that in bringing elected officials who have their own way of doing things together to come up with an approach?
Well, I think it's possible. I think one of the things you talk about, what are the challenges that we have, and I had to, when we talk about moving forward, and I have to kind of go back to what Mr. Thacker said. I hadn't really thought about it before. What if Disney were coming forward and we said, you know, we think we can get your permitting and get you on board in about a year to 2 years. How would that change Central Florida? So I think that we have a challenge amongst ourselves as going forward to determining, you know, what we can do. And I think if hopefully they picked up on what you said. As chairman of the Congress of Regional Leaders, I represent 86 cities and 7 counties. So the barriers that are in there sometimes can be you might think is the parochialism, but it really truly isn't. I think some of the biggest issues we've had is the problem is we don't know what the problem is. But imagine being able to sit down with the mayor of Titusville, the mayor of DeLand, the mayor of Windermere. What do we have in common? Chairman of Volusia County, commissioner from Polk County, and to be able to sit down and talk about what the issues are. So if we can find that common ground, I think we take a great step forward. I think also one of the things that's really important to note is local government can't do it alone. One of the things I know the mayors met with Senator Herodopoulos earlier this year on an initiative we called Mayors Mean Business, same as Open for Business. And the message was local government is a partner with the state government. By the same token, we need state government to be a partner with local government. Some of the things that we look at is how can we perhaps streamline the issues that we have regarding foreclosure. I mean, for something that's sitting for a year to 2 years, impacts local government, our realtors, our builders, and construction. So it's a partnership, I think, that we have to go forward, and it's a joint effort.
And then adding to that, Rick, your responsibility at the Metro Orlando EDC is to make sure that you can market this environment as a place where companies can grow and prosper. What's the benefit if you could have that ability to say, you come to Central Florida, you've got one-stop shopping, you've got an ability to get your businesses up and running better than anywhere else in the country?
Well, thank you, Shelley, for the opportunity to participate in this panel, and thank the members of the delegation for taking time from their busy schedule to be here with us and talk about this important issue. Relatively new to Central Florida, but I'm not new to this issue. This is an issue that everybody's dealing with across the country. It's also one area where a little progress can make a lot of difference. Regional economic development is all about providing prospective companies with a single and simple point of contact to aid in their consideration of location alternatives. Streamlining permitting and regulatory approval of major job-creating projects will be a major, I mean major enhancement in this region and this state's competitive position for several reasons. One, it's a low-cost way of improving competitive position. Reducing red tape, eliminating redundancy, and increasing efficiency can usually be done at little or no cost to the agency. And the savings to the companies are pretty well documented. And anytime we can save companies money, it's a good thing. It also reduces the time involved in getting projects underway. And this can be a tiebreaker in a competitive position where speed to market is a key ingredient in being successful as projects are moving forward at an ever-increasing pace. And of course, it also means that new jobs will be created sooner and come online more quickly. And also, I'd be remiss if I didn't point out that the importance of word-of-mouth marketing of our open for business approach. Companies talk to each other, site location experts talk to each other, and when a state or region takes bold action to improve the regulatory environment, the word travels quickly. And when the word gets around that Central Florida is really open for business, you'll be surprised at how quickly our project pipeline fills up. And then open for business really means ready for business.
Great. Thank you, Rick. And in fact, can I do a follow-up with that? I've heard you speak recently about the importance of balancing incentives that we provide to attract with investment in making sure communities are strong and vibrant. Can you speak a little bit about that issue for our legislators, please?
Shelley, in a perfect world, our state and our region would have made all the right investments over time to create a product or business environment and competitive position that would be a compelling value proposition for new and expanding industry. In other words, our assets and our attributes would be so attractive that when combined with our natural advantages, companies would be literally knocking at our door to get into business in Central Florida. Such an environment wouldn't eliminate the need for pro-business incentives, but it would reduce the need dramatically. It would put us in the driver's seat as companies are drawn to our communities to take advantage of and exploit our human and material resources. Indeed, such a future scenario should be our vision and our long-term strategy, to be able to consistently attract new investment and jobs based on the quality of our place and the quality of our people. The bad news is that we don't live in a perfect world today. We live in a world in which most, if not all, projects are competitive projects, meaning that companies have choices, numerous locations to choose from, and they are driven by their own competitive pressures to maximize opportunities and returns. We live in a world where jobs are at a premium. Almost all public policy discussions today have job creation or job retention at their core. This means that the competition for these jobs is greater than ever before, greater than I've seen it in 30 years in this business. And this white-hot competition creates a bidding war among countries, among states, among regions, and among communities. And the way this plays out often is in the final analysis with financial incentives. So while we may not like the incentive game, we are going to be in it until our overall economic environment improves. We have to be in the game if we're going to attract and compete for competitive projects. And if we're going to be in the game, we need to be sure that we have the right tools. And these incentive tools should be performance and economic impact model based. Incentive investments should be tied to specific company performance and related directly to the economic impact that the projects will generate. In short, they have to be a good deal for both the community, the state, and the company. And finally, they should be simple and straightforward, easy to access, and easy to market. Just like our regulatory environment must be streamlined, so must our financial incentive policies. With the right tools, simple, well-priced, performance-based, impact model organized, we should be able to compete for projects now that will generate the revenues that will enable us to make the investments so that we don't need them so much in the future.
So, as leaders, we hope that you can help us as we think about this balance of regulatory barriers that we can continue to look to remove and so that business can prosper, and investment into future company growth as we think about the expansion of jobs and business here in Central Florida. On behalf of my colleagues, thank you very much for your time here today. Thank you.
All right, thank you for leading that conversation. Water everywhere. And now it's time to deal with this on a regional, statewide, and national basis. Jim Sellon is the co-chair of Urban Land Institute for Central Florida and a principal with VHB Miller Sellon. I have known Jim for some time, but I see him now working on a regular basis in this project as a volunteer, a civic leader. Join me in saying welcome to our facilitator, Jim Sellon. Good morning, Jim.
Thank you, Jacob. Good morning. I want to start with this little H2O thing and remind everyone that we've sort of taken that for granted. We are never going to be in a situation here in Central Florida and maybe in the state of Florida where we're going to run out of that. We're always going to turn on the tap and the water's always going to go in that glass. The issue that we face, and it's a big issue, is if we're not really careful, this cheap little glass of water is going to get real expensive. And I think that's the context that we want to talk to you in today. Our panel today includes Eric Jacobson, who's Vice President and General Manager of Desiree Ranches. Take a good look at Eric. You won't often see him in a suit. And so I'm sure he's pleased to be here and very uncomfortable in that suit. Sam Johnson, who's Commissioner for Polk County. Sam is also the elected chair, or the chair-elect of the Central Florida Congress of Regional Leaders. Sam has been a leader and Polk County's been a leader in trying to get at the water supply issues in our region. And also Kathleen McIver, who's a broker and real estate associate and has to look at this from the context of real estate and the sale of homes and how we deal with conserving our water supply. Let me just give you a little bit of context, and I'll do this very quickly so we can get to the questions. It's 2006. Some of us wish it was still 2006. And things are going and blowing in terms of the real estate industry and in terms of our economy. And we're starting to experience environmental problems in terms of the withdrawal from our groundwater supply. Lake levels are lowering. We're having impacts on wetlands, so on and so forth. And because of this, and because of these indicators, we're starting to recognize that we're hitting the limits of our groundwater supply. But the real issue is we don't understand how much groundwater we have. We don't have the number in terms of how much groundwater we have to draw on. And so in order to try and tackle that in 2006, we've got a regional or a water management district set up where we have 3 water management districts in this region. Each water management district has their own model, and they look at that model in terms of trying to get at that answer of how much groundwater we have. Each of them has their own permitting requirements and their own policies. And they're not coming together in a manner that's helping us solve our problem. So in 2007, they start what they call is the Central Florida Coordination Area, where they ask local governments to come together under their leadership to try and develop one model, to try and develop one set of permitting policies, so on and so forth, to try and get at this issue. The result is that by 2009, as the recession occurs and as the demand for water goes down, the water management districts are not successful in being able to get at this solution. Just not successful in being able to get there. But in the process of getting there, they put together an interim rule. And the interim rule says, and I'm sure as the legislative delegation you're familiar with this, that by 2013, the water management district would not issue a consumptive use permit after 2013 unless it included an alternative water supply solution. Something else besides taking water from taking our groundwater from the Florida aquifer. And that, again, leads to something that's a lot more expensive in terms of these solutions. But again, 2009, they haven't solved it, so what do we do? What are we faced with? Well, we're faced with no one local government in Central Florida has the ability to solve this problem on their own. No one local government. So how do we come together as local governments? How do we collaborate to solve the problem of water supply? How do we agree on what the technical knowledge base needs to be in terms of the amount of water we have, amount of groundwater we have, and how much we can withdraw? How do we agree on how we assess the impacts on that withdrawal on the environment? How do we agree on the policies that are going to govern the use of the remaining groundwater? And how do we collaborate in terms of constructing and planning for and constructing the facilities that are necessary to provide a sustainable water supply? This has been studied by our local governments, the governments involved in the Central Florida Coordination Area. It's been studied by my region in cooperation with the Urban Land Institute. And the result of those studies is the recommendation that we have a pilot project. And that pilot project comes under the heading of the Central Florida Water Initiative. And the idea of the Central Florida Water Initiatives is that on a voluntary basis, these local governments would come together and for the purpose of having one model and one definition of harm to the environment and one baseline condition and one process for processing permits. So it's in that context today of trying to develop this pilot project that our panel is going to try and answer a few questions to give you some background in the direction that we're trying to go. And I want to start with Sam Johnson. And Sam, Polk County's been a leader, of course, in water supply and in planning for water supply. And my question for you is, why do you believe that this organization, like the Central Florida Water Initiative, is based on voluntary participation of local governments, will be successful in addressing our water supply needs in Central Florida? And then how will that approach fare when we move from planning to the real tough thing, which is funding these regional water supply projects?
Thanks, Jim. I think the first response, and hopefully you guys can hear, I know somebody was talking back in the back, so I'm going to put the mic up close. But in Polk County, you know, we found ourselves in that situation of what are we going to do in 2013, not being able to withdraw additional water from the aquifer, which is the cheapest way to get it. Right. And so we put together a water alliance within Polk County with our 17 municipalities, the Polk County, of course, and the 2 water management districts that manage us, being South Florida Water Management District and the Southwest Florida Water Management District. And when we sat down together, we not only found that there were differences between the 2 water districts, but there were also differences between the requirements just between the different cities with the same water management district. And so immediately we said, hey, we've all got to get on the same page here so that we can work together to achieve the end result, which is alternative water supplies. And we immediately began to work on the initial things, which are water conservation, conservation rates, what can we do in-house to reduce the water, and then what can we begin to do together to work for those future needs so that we can plan. Because the interesting thing with alternative water supply, you can't drill a well in a couple of months and have water coming out of it. It's a long-range plan, and it ends up costing millions and millions of dollars, both of which you don't have when the population is growing and you're reacting to a problem, and 2, you don't have when the revenue is down. And for these types of projects, individual municipalities and counties don't have that kind of money to fund those projects. And so I think when you talked about the Central Florida coordination area, with the fact that it's going to sunset in 2012, the natural evolution, so to speak, would be that the Central Florida Water Initiative step into this and align the communities in this area, the 7 counties that represent Central Florida, and say, let's work together. And I think we can achieve it. The biggest thing is going to be trust, and I think we found that in the past, and we're going to find that in the future. We've all got to be working, knowing what those rules are. And we've got to have that trust and spirit of cooperation. Moving from planning to funding, and I'll try to wrap this up. You know, currently the water suppliers, we fund our projects. And sometimes when there's a major project, we do get additional funding from some of the water management districts. When it comes to alternative water supply projects, reservoirs, you know, piping water from this location to another is going to require a lot of funding. I think the communities will be fine with proportional share, but we also know that there's going to have to be a level of funding from the water management districts and other state agencies to make this successful. And if we don't, Jim, the bottom line is we're going to end up with 2 things I think we need a lot less of, and that's litigation and legislation.
Exactly. We'd rather pay for those reservoirs than to sue each other. Exactly. Eric, surface water has to be stored during times of plentiful rainfall for use during the dry season. And many of the prime locations for storage are agricultural sites. Do you see opportunities for governments and utilities to forge partnerships with private landowners to use private lands to store water and avoid the need for large expenditures to purchase land for that purpose? And in our effort to assure we have sufficient water supply to support urban growth, how do we also ensure that we don't deprive agriculture from the water it needs to economically survive?
Okay.
2 easy questions.
Yeah, a couple questions built in there. First of all, I want to thank everyone for giving agriculture a seat at the table today. I think that's very important. When I came in, Shelley told me she was disappointed I was wearing a tie. And I said, that's okay, I am too. But no, I have to do it more often than I care to these days. All right, first of all, to answer your first question, I think the answer is yes. I think there are significant opportunities to store store water on agricultural properties. I think the important thing is that there needs to be a clearly defined benefit for both sides, I would say. If the districts or a utility come in with kind of a it's our way or the highway attitude because of their condemnation authority, it's not a good basis in which to start that relationship. Give you two examples. I've seen this on the stormwater retention and stormwater treatment side, but I've not seen it much yet on the supply side. About 18 years ago, we constructed about a 500-acre stormwater retention reservoir in the south end of our property down by the headwaters of the St. Johns River, and it was designed to store and treat our stormwater before it went out onto the river. And we felt like it was the right thing to do from an environmental standpoint, and so we had plans to move forward with it, but we worked with the district and were able to get some mitigation credits from that project to help justify it economically. And that's a reality. I think it's something that we need to think about. Another program I've seen recently, and this is again on the stormwater side, not on the supply side, the South Florida Water Management District, I think, has done a pretty good job putting together a program where they've kind of gone upstream, no pun intended, but gone to the ranches, in that Kissimmee River Basin and said, we'll pay you an annual amount of dollars if you'll construct some structures on your property and store water or hold it back on your property. And what we pay you will be less than what will cost us to construct reservoirs downstream to create that same. And so to me, that's a program that makes a lot of sense, and it's a win-win. And frankly, it creates some diversity for a rancher or a farmer in their business model, that now they have another source of revenue to build into their operation to make it more viable. So I think that's important. Like I said, I haven't seen it much on the supply side. I think we need to think more that way. Perhaps there'll need to be some legislative tools or some tools put in place legislatively to create some kind of a framework to facilitate deals like that, because they seem to deteriorate quickly into, we're going to condemn you, we're going to sue you, and that's the end of the deal. And then finally, to answer the last part of your question, maybe repeat your second question just so everybody remembers it.
Yeah, in order to pay for the development of in our effort to assure we have sufficient water supply to support urban growth, how do we ensure we don't deprive agriculture from the water it needs to economically survive?
Yeah, I think the issue there is that my guess is that very few people in this room are directly involved in production agriculture. It's become very efficient over the years, and because of that, a very small percentage of the population can feed everybody else. And so I think the main problem is it's not top of mind. When these conversations take place about allocations, people forget about agriculture. So I think, in my mind, the critical thing is for the long-term sustainability of the region, we need to keep agriculture in mind for two reasons. One is that it allows continued production of locally grown food. And then the second is, of course, it probably provides about 90% of the open space in the region. So what happens with water is when too much water is taken off an agricultural property, it limits you agriculturally or operationally. It also has some negative impact long-term on your land valuations. And so it puts a rancher or a farmer in a situation where they could potentially go out of business, and of course puts a region in a situation where they'll lose food production and lose that open space.
Yeah, great point. We don't often look at this as an economic development tool, but the availability and price of it has a lot to do with how competitive we are. Final question. Kathleen, we I guess consume about 100 to 150 gallons of water per day, per capita per day, which is high compared to other parts of the world, very high in fact. And it's been estimated as much as 50% of that we use to water our lawns. How do you believe the real estate industry is going to react to substantial increases in the cost of potable water, and what measures do you think we should be considering to conserve water from a real estate standpoint?
Thank you. And thank you for your time being here today. I appreciate it. From what I've been told, that number of 50% for irrigation is even higher. So we are spending a huge amount of our water assets to water our lawns. And when you look at the bigger picture of this, we need to rethink that. The reaction would be as you would expect. It's going to be ugly. People won't like having to pay 2 and 3 and 4 times what they're paying now for water, and if not more. You know, with as challenging as the real estate market has been the past couple years, let's throw a couple $100 water bill on top of it, and you're adding another nail in a coffin. I mean, that's not going to help our recovery in the real estate market. And it's, you know, it's a bigger issue to our state and our region. It's not just about Central Florida. It's a bigger issue. And if we don't figure this out, somebody from the federal government's going to come in and say, we're going to fix it for you, whether it's the EPA or some other government entity. And from my perspective, the federal government coming in and helping us with foreclosures hasn't really helped us a whole lot. So I think that's one thing we would want to avoid and fix it ourselves. Realtors are pretty good stewards of their communities. We are already very active in a lot of issues affecting property owners. And namely, I'm going to step in this one big time because I see my friend Senator Constantine here, our issue with septic tanks. That has been a huge issue that the realtor associations have been working on for the past 8 years. And we can see how damaging bad science can be. A proposed $15,000 fix for a septic tank is completely unaffordable to a homeowner and literally could put somebody else out of their home. We need smarter solutions than that. Realtors have embraced green initiatives throughout the country and are doing their best to educate their over 1 million members in the United States. Conservation is an essential part of our solution in order to maintain the quality of life here. But we need to continue to encourage smart building practices through our Home Builders Association and work on conservation, whether we're looking at cisterns, solar energy, dual flush toilets, which most of Europe already has. They've already figured this out. And provide potentially financial incentive to those builders that are making these types of efforts paramount in their building practices. The other thing that hasn't really been discussed is we need to reevaluate and address the homeowners associations and the requirements of the St. Augustine lawns and other high water dependent landscaping as part of their covenants. That is when they require you to put in a lawn that takes a significant amount of money, that needs to be legislated. That needs to be addressed because it's enforced that way. There are alternatives to drought-tolerant plantings. We just need to educate our citizens. And looking at educating the residents of Central Florida about water use, protecting our natural assets, and encouraging them to come up with alternative methods of conservation, and let's start with our youngest citizens, our children. They get this. Yeah, they understand what recycling is about. And I mean, let's start with educating them in the schools. The Water Management District's ad campaign did a great job about, only watering twice a week and odd numbers and even numbers. People get that. We just have to educate them. And please understand that realtors are ground zero. We have to be able to sell the whole package. It's not just about selling a house. And realize that when a realtor does sell a home in a community, the economic spinoff is about $23,000. For the handyman, the roofer, the painter, Home Depot, Lowe's, you name it. Realtors want smart solutions that not only make sense, but protect the natural assets and quality of life of what we have here in Central Florida.
Great point. Delegation, thank you for listening to our points on the water strategy, and please continue to help us in implementing the Central Florida Water Initiative. Jacob, back to you.
Ladies and gentlemen, the final panel is all about entrepreneurship and innovation. In fact, just a few miles from here today is one of the largest conventions of its kind in the world, Modeling Simulation. It's the largest conference in the world, and it's right here in our super region. And we want to talk a little bit more about that, and lead this conversation is Fred Kittinger, Associate Vice President for University Relations right here at the University of Central Florida. Join me in saying welcome to Fred Kittinger. Thank you, Fred.
Great. And thank you, Jacob, to you and the partnership for convening us this morning and leading our chamber every day here in this community. And welcome, President Herodopoulos, members from the Florida House and the Florida Senate. We're so glad that you carved the time from your calendars to join us today. Now, in all humbleness, I cannot think of a better cleanup batting panel than these three individuals. Because when you think of those words, entrepreneurship and innovation, and the role in economic development, these three individuals are taking the lead in this community. And focus again on the two words, economic development. Those two words become ubiquitous in our daily conversations. It's top of mind for public policymakers, for leaders from small and large businesses alike, from entrepreneurs and from innovators. And rightly so, because it's from our economy that we will derive the wealth and the jobs that define our prosperity, that will fuel our aspirations, find the funds for our schools, our social care systems, and our infrastructure, all which sustain our prosperity from generation to generation. These three individuals have been toiling in the proverbial vineyards of economic development for years. First of all, Wayman Armstrong is the founder and the CEO of Engineering and Computer Simulations. He is the chair-elect for Orlando Inc., the Orlando Regional Chamber of Commerce, and last year, in a ceremony at the White House, Wayman was designated by the U.S. Small Business Administration as the Small Business Person of the Year for 2010. So Wayman, thanks for joining us today. Yes. Leslie Hillema is president of Orlando Inc., your Greater Orlando Regional Chamber of Commerce. Leslie oversees a chamber that carries a 5-star status. That's a 5-star rating by the U.S. Chamber. There are over 7,000 chambers in the United States. Less than 40 carry the 5-star chamber rating, and that's Leslie and her team. Thank you for joining us, Leslie. And finally, Dr. Tom O'Neill. Tom is the Associate Vice President for Research and Commercialization here at UCF. He is the founder and the brain behind our incubator system here, which has been nationally recognized as the leading high-tech business incubator in the United States. So we have Wayman, Leslie, and Tom. We're going to start off, I think, with Leslie this morning. We're going to jump around a little bit. Leslie, seed capital for early start companies has been a challenge for everybody. What are some of the issues that you all at Orlando Inc. are taking on when it comes to finding that startup capital for companies?
Well, we know that businesses need money for 4 main reasons, and that's to start a business, purchase inventory, expand a business, or strengthen their financials. And the two most widely used sources are owner investment or bank loans and credit. And so we all know with the housing and credit market, capital markets have froze, and traditional sources of funds like credit cards and home equity leverage have become less accessible. But overall, this is a problem our nation needs to tackle. But in Central Florida, we have amazing innovations, ideas, and ventures that require seed or early stage funding to bring this new product or venture to market. You know, a small venture can rely on family funding, loans from friends, personal bank loans, or crowdfunding. For more ambitious projects, some companies may need access to rare funding such as angels or to venture capital. And this seed money provides enough funding so a venture has enough funds to get to a point where they can sustain themselves financially or be eligible for a second round of funding. And this is typically used to pay for preliminary operations such as market research or product development. So what can Orlando Inc. do to help facilitate the need for this early stage funding to bring these kind of innovations to market? I'd like to set the stage. Orlando Inc. is going through transformation. We now have a board of directors composed of advanced stage successful entrepreneurs. And you can kind of think of Orlando Inc. as a collective entrepreneurial experiences, knowledge, and contacts, almost like a mentorship on steroid for our entrepreneurs in the community. And we also have collective insights into some of the gaps in our marketplace. Therefore, we need to focus on early stage capital because it is one of those gaps. So we can do some specific things to foster additional early stage funding. One is to foster a regional ecosystem by increasing its richness of resources and accelerating entrepreneurs' connections to these resources. Therefore, we're building strong companies. We need to build companies that are investment level. We need to support and promote existing and new local early stage investment vehicles. We have some new ones now that are just starting. This year, we have a couple of new early stage investment vehicles modeled on some successful models in North Carolina Idea Fund, and the Techstars in Boulder, Colorado. We have some other very successful angel investment funds. So I'd say we're at the adolescent stage. We are moving forward. And we need to attract the attention of venture capital firms and better tell them our story. We can better educate and prepare our companies to do their pitch to investors. We can support efforts to nurture high-growth companies, which are the real job producers, those that Dr. Tom O'Neill will talk about with the Grow FL program, because investors look for companies that provide exit opportunities. And the better companies that we have for investors, the better we will begin attracting the kind of capital we want. Our business incubators are critical. And really, right now at the federal level, we need to advocate for the recommendations put forth by the National Advisory Council on Innovation and Entrepreneurship under the U.S. Department of Commerce. Their proposals to mitigate seed and stage startup investment risk. And also, the House recently passed the Entrepreneur Access to Capital Act, which makes easier for businesses to crowd fund. So there's important activities that are needed for early stage. And I think the main thing we need to do is really be patient and positive in Central Florida. We are getting there. We're adolescents, we're young, but we have some visionary leaders like Dr. Tom O'Neill and Wayman Armstrong that really want to bring this collective experience to other entrepreneurs to bring this kind of capital to our marketplace.
Well, Leslie's done a great job of walking us across the macro system or the ecosystem of entrepreneurship. Now we're going to drill down to the individual level. Wayman, with a lot of the work that you give and do with small startup companies, we all know it's startup companies that give us those new jobs and new wealth, but what are some of the greatest obstacles and challenges facing those startup companies?
First of all, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity here to represent the entrepreneurial community. It's a great honor. It comes down to three things you talk to fellow entrepreneurs. One is lending. Second is the lack of angel investment and venture capital, as Leslie mentioned. And third is the current and future cuts in the federal government research and development. First, we'll start with lending. Everybody knows what's going on right now. We talk about the credit line, the problems you have in getting that, and bank loans. But most of the entrepreneurs I know, myself included, have used credit cards to get started. And so when 10 years ago, 22 credit cards and $330,000 is what the company was built on. I couldn't do that today, nor would I want to. But the point is that opportunity for entrepreneurs who are out there who need that to try and build a company, it's not there. Angel investment. I have 3 angel investors. When I went out from angel investors, I pitched over 50 local high net worth individuals. At least one is in this audience. I won't embarrass anybody, but and say anything, but you owe me a beer. But I had to go out to San Diego, Kansas City, Missouri, and Washington, D.C. to find my angels. Venture capitals. Venture capitalists. We have one here. You know, that $330,000 I talked about credit card debt, for me, venture capital, VC dollars, it was Visa card. If you're going to go ahead and scale a company to have the access for that capital to go that next stage. That goes for private equity. And lastly, federal funding. I got to tell you this, we've received over $30 million of federally funded research and development, and we are great stewards of your taxpayer dollars, I want you to know. We couldn't create the intellectual property that we have out there and others without National Science Foundation grants, without Small Business Innovation Research grants, without broad agency announcements. Right now, and we know how serious the federal budget issues are, but we can't cut the innovation that creates the jobs right now for us, not just as Central Florida, but us as a country. And so we have to be aware of that, and that is having a tremendous effect on other small businesses. Look, we're not out there looking for those federal funding dollars for not just the projects. We invest ourselves into that, internal research development dollars. But based on the current environment, there is that uncertainty that we have on what projects are going to be funded, especially in research, how they're going to scale, and where those dollars are, where we're going to make investments. And if you talk to myself and other technology entrepreneurs locally, those are the concerns we currently face.
Thanks, Wayman. Now, Dr. O'Neill, for the last 11 years, you have been the Papa Smurf of the nation's most highly recognized incubator system. Now, if you were to look back over those 10-plus years, have you all hit the goals that you had in mind 11 years ago?
How to answer it, being called a Smurf, but the original goal was to help create successful companies. You know, it was in commercialized university technology. Again, create homegrown companies that get their roots here, that stay here, that hire our students, that hire other people in the community, that bring money from the outside in here and create an ecosystem. You know, so if you want to know if we're successful, I think so. 90% of the companies that have entered our program are still in business today, and 90% of those companies stayed in the community. So I think that's a good success rating. We're doing it now, I think, at a scale that really moves the needle. You know, which is it's not a little boutique. You know, we're doing it in big numbers. We have 118 companies in the program now. We have 60 graduates from the program. And we had added 48 new companies last year alone. So the scale is starting to make a difference, I think, in the community. And again, you know, you measure success, it's interesting. You just want to feel good about yourself. Just walk down the hall of the incubator and talk to some of those companies. We really are helping people realize their dreams, and we're helping those dreams, preventing them from becoming nightmares, if you know what I mean. And sometimes it's just a little thing here and there that could make turn a dream into a nightmare. So in that sense, we are very successful. You know, the addition of the partnership and working with our community has been a goal that we've always wanted, and President Hitt's been just visionary of that, and I loved it. So I grabbed it the first day he got here, and I've been running with it. And working with communities is something we really need to do, because we would never have had an incubator if it wasn't for the partnerships that we were able to create to do this. And again, thanks to everybody in this room to make this successful. The incubator was one of the first things we did in an ecosystem. So one of the things it helped us do was create other things to build onto the program. The GrowFL program, the National Entrepreneur Center, and the Venture Lab, all were kind of spin-outs of the spin-out, if you will. And that's been very satisfying, kind of more than I ever hoped for.
Great. Well, in the parlance of higher education, I think you earned a passing grade. You're on to the next semester. Now, Wayman, I want to go back to the life of entrepreneur. You started a company, and you advise and mentor a lot of startup companies. What are some of the resources in this community for companies that are being prepared to launch?
You know, if I finished last time on giving as far as I want to say some on a bad news one, let me tell you the good news. The good news is the synergy that you have right now, that we are creating right now for small business is incredible. If you're an entrepreneur, if it's free, it's me. And let me tell you what we offer here currently. If you're starting up a company between the Small Business Development Center and National Entrepreneur Center, you can go ahead and get started and take advantage of that. As you go up, and as Leslie mentioned, Orlando Inc. right now is facilitating the entrepreneurial ecosystem and creating what's out there. Tom mentioned UCF Incubator. We're a proud virtual graduate of that. As you start growing back up and need other resources, the Metro Orlando EDC, Rollins Crummer has the Advanced Entrepreneurship Program, the Florida High Tech Corridor, which funds and has funded us, and we're thankful for that. And then what Dr. Hitt mentioned, the GrowFL program, Florida Economic Gardening, we were fortunate enough to be one of the first firms 4 years ago to start, 4.5 years ago in that. In that time, we've grown by over 300%. We would not have been able to handle the growth ourselves and other companies without what's been done through the GrowFL program. And I think if there's any program right now that you can look that's going to have an impact, because as you look, majority of those jobs, while we talk are created by small businesses, there are these companies in the second stage, from 10 to 100 folks. They're going to go ahead and go through that no man's land. And there's an issue as you're going through there. How do I scale? What do I scale? What decisions do I make? And you're going to find that's where that Death Valley exists. What's been done through the GrowFL, through the Florida Economic Gardening, has helped myself and others create those jobs and be able to live through that and what the times have right now. So that has been a tremendous program. As anybody's heard me talk before, any success I've had or we have, it's because other people want to see us succeed. Those 8 local economic development organizations have been tremendous in our success.
Right, thanks. Leslie, I know you work very closely with the Florida Chamber. Very quickly, what would be a couple of the must-pass issues for business this year?
I think under the pillar of innovation and economic development, we need to focus on the importance of international trade and enhance assistance to first-time exporters. And under the pillar of business climate and competitiveness, we really need to tackle the agenda items under access to capital.
Access to capital, thanks. And Tom, we've got about 30 seconds is the mark that I'm getting. I wanted to ask you if you could perhaps share with the legislators, because you worked last year with Representative Horners and others on the GrowFL funding, how that program is progressing and what you need in the future.
Well, it's mostly what Wayman said. You know, I mean, it really has been a successful program of helping companies. 8% of the companies in Florida are second stage. They represent 30% of the jobs. So you want to know where you can get a good bang for your buck, what it's doing. The program has helped hundreds of companies create thousands of jobs in its pilot stage. It's done very good results, and it's only been 2 years old, really, if you think about it. We did some stuff before then, but it's a good program that I think will help create jobs.
Well, legislators, as you go forward and you start analyzing public policy and funding priorities, I want to make sure you realize that here in Central Florida, you not only have one of the best living laboratories for economic development, you have your own personal brain trust. So please call upon this community and these players for any help that you may need in the future. Thank you again for allowing us the opportunity to share our thoughts with you, and please join me in thanking our panel.
If you could join me here and allow the conversation to continue with your colleagues. Infrastructure and growth leadership, business climate and competitiveness, civic governance, and systems, innovation, and economic growth. Those are the big themes, and we want to be in support of your work. Senator, please.
Well, good morning, and thank you again for participating, and this is always helpful. And what I obviously want to do is first and foremost is just lay a couple of issues out there, and however the representatives and senators want to join, I think it'll be fruitful. As you all might know, on Monday, the Senate did place into the public discussion the first sets of maps. As you all know, Amendments 5 and 6 passed last year, and we've been very respectful of the wishes of the people, as I think both those who are for and against the amendment, as well as the discussion that took place in the House and Senate, the number one priority that both Republicans and Democrats put forth was the simple idea that minority representation would not diminish. And if you look at the maps that were drawn, at least initially from the Senate side, you'll see that that was respected. Beyond that, we've tried to very much keep counties intact as we move forward within that. But remember, as you draw those districts, you're looking at the minority access seats first, and then those other districts are drawn around it. But again, we're still very early in the process, and the great news is that we've already held, I believe, 26 meetings across the state to get that input, but we'll continue to do so as we move forward to the voting that will take place in early January. One piece of news that might help Central Florida is the idea that I have to just say the large growth in the Hispanic population in Central Florida was respected within those maps as you take a look at those, and you might want to comment as we move forward. Beyond that, I know there's a few issues that people have been discussing around the table today. Maybe Representative Plaikin, I might call on you. I know that you have very much an interest in the internet cafes, and you've expressed some concerns about that. Maybe you want to illuminate the group and especially the members of the House and Senate.
Thank you, Mr. President. Gambling in the state of Florida has been very carefully legislated through Democratic and Republican legislators, and over the years, since slot machines were enacted in prohibited in 1937, all the back and forth, we've ended up with a few dozen locations of gambling that have been authorized. These would be parimutuels, the tribal locations, and a few places offshore you can go. About 6 years ago in the state, though, a group called Allied Veterans started a new industry here in Florida that I call storefront casinos, which are effectively, with new technology, slot machines on a PC, a personal computer. In April, Business Week reported now that in 6 years there's 1,000 of these locations in state, and it's grown to be about $1 billion in gambling that's happened right under our noses. The biggest problem that these have caused for the state is the convenience aspect. People that would never go to another gambling location are sort of stumbling into them because they're often right next door to the public store or the dry cleaners. So many of the communities are starting to see the crime and social problems that go along with these. Now, we've talked this morning about our brand here in Florida and in Central Florida. We are here in Central Florida where the mouse is and such. It's tourism, but not just tourism, it's family-friendly tourism is very important to us. Years ago, Las Vegas has been an adult place to go, and they tried to be a family destination. It didn't work. Likewise, here, our brand is family, so to bring these kind of things into here, I think are problematic and can infringe our brand. The storefront casino phenomenon is so bad that a few months ago, the San Francisco Examiner, they do a column called The Daily Outrage. Well, our inability to deal with the storefront casinos was their daily outrage. They're laughing at us. What we really have here is, with changing technology, lack of clarity in our laws that has enabled this to happen. We've talked this morning about incentives to bring the right kind of businesses that enhance our jobs, good paying jobs, and even our culture. We also, and I'm going to suggest to the members and the senators here, we should look at businesses like this that have, I call it an infestation that's happened in our state, that can infringe upon our brand and even the ability to other companies to come here when they see this kind of activity going on right in our neighborhoods. So I've filed House Bill 3. Senator Ulrich has filed a companion bill in the Senate, and it is to prohibit these from keeping going in our state. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. I never thought San Francisco would ever call us not being conservative enough. Remarkable. Only that newspaper. All right. Other comments? Representative Precourt, did you want to give us an update on what's happened with the digital media and film?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. But first, I would like to second Representative Plaikin's concern about the branding of Florida with respect to gambling. And I'd like to expand it a little bit to the destination casino gambling proposals as well. I think that they're every bit as a concern that we should have as the internet storefront cafes. One of the economic development mechanisms that President Herodopoulos and I had worked on over the past couple of years that has been actually wildly successful in the state of Florida was our Film and Entertainment Incentive Program. For those of you that don't know, and I think most of you do, because a number of you have benefited from it that are in the room, it is a performance-based incentive that is a tax credit for producing games, films, and other sort of digital media here in the state of Florida. It's a smart form of economic incentive in that it provides the performance incentive only after those jobs are created and the work is done. So that $240+ million worth of economic incentive that we put out there in the form of tax credits is leveraged into over $1 billion worth of economic activity at 4-to-1 ratio for these incentives. And again, it's been wildly successful, especially in some areas down South Florida. There's been a big boom in the the television industry down there. We've had a number of films filmed here right in Central Florida that are directly here as a result of this program as well. But it's also a balance bill in that it incentivizes not only this legacy industry and entertainment that we have here in the state, and that is very labor intensive, but it also incentivizes the future of entertainment. It incentivizes those digital media programs. It incentivizes the games programs that are more capital intensive. So these guys build bricks and mortar here, and they bring permanent jobs and are establishing those long-term businesses like Wayman Armstrong's that are here, not exactly his, but very similar ones, that are going to be the future of this industry here in Central Florida, and it's helping us to be on the leading edge of that. So once again, that's the kind of model that we're looking for, those kind of performance-based incentives, in addition to the direct grants and the program funding that we talked about a lot today, which are all necessary in the toolbox of economic development. But again, we'll likely be looking more towards performance-based incentives this year as well. And I want to thank President Herodopoulos for the honor of working with him for the past couple of years on this specific issue.
Thank you, Mr. Representative. One other issue that did come out from our first meetings a couple of years ago, of course, is the issue of space. And I know a lot of us who live on the Space Coast, Representative Goodson especially, Representative Christopher Pooley, and others, really concerned about the direction we're going. The great news is the last 2 years, because of your help, it's been the best 2 years ever for Space Florida, and we've seen real private sector growth take place because of it as we move towards a more commercial space market on down the line, getting into Volusia County and other areas. But before we move forward as far as voting for a new chair and vice chair, is there anything else from the members that would like to bring up that might be important? Representative Soto, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. As you know, there have been several articles about problems with our economic development system currently. Agencies not knowing how much money went to different companies, how many jobs were created. And I would strongly encourage you to put forth a package this year to create greater accountability in the use of our economic development dollars. And I would certainly look towards the film tax credit as a model, in that we shouldn't be outlaying dollars in advance. In most cases, we should be looking for receipts, looking for results, and then refunding, much like we do with the film tax credit, to assure in the future we're not seeing money being outlaid and jobs not created.
Representative Taylor, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. And before I make my comments, I want to thank our UCF president, President Hitt, for being here. He was my president. This is my school. And I appreciate the fact that we're allowed to be here at every meeting. And I do support going to the Big East, Mr. President. But as it was mentioned earlier by Alex, and I know he's gone, and I don't know how we can do this, Mr. President, but I'd like to formally put out a resolution supporting Dwight Howard staying with the Magic and showing our support for him remaining a Magic center, because as you know, the Magic is a strong economic engine in downtown Orlando. And as Sunrail is being constructed, parts of that come out of Volusia County. Now I can see a number of our residents driving to the land jumping on Sunrail, coming down to downtown Orlando, watching the Magic beat the Heat, and then taking Sunrail back to the land, getting in their cars, and I think it's a convenience thing. So I just want to put that out there, Mr. President, and let the Orlando area and the East Volusia area know that we support the Magic. Nice. Go Magic.
Very well, thank you, Representative. As long as we're not paying his salary, I think we'll be good. Other information for the good. I hope some of the representatives and senators can stay around. I know some people probably have some individual questions, but with that, maybe Representative Dorworth, you want to make a recommendation on who might be the chair and vice chair for our new delegation? I know the Senate had the opportunity to chair it the last couple years. I'd like to recognize, maybe I'll make the motion. I'd like to make a motion that Representative Dorworth serve as our new chair of the Central Florida delegation, if no one objects.
I second, Mr. Chairman, Mr. President.
All right. Without objection, show that done. And I'd like to also recognize maybe Andy Gardner, if it allows within our rules, might serve as the vice chair on the Senate side to keep this good idea going in the years forward. Does anyone object to that? Okay. Without objection, show that done. I like these elections. These are any other? I'll just close it. President Hitt, thanks again for hosting us. This has been a real success. And Jacob, I'm glad to see the meeting in Senator Simmons' office came to fruition this year. You've done a remarkable job. Fred, thanks again for your help as well on campus. But to my fellow representatives and senators, again, thanks for making this happen. Hope we all enjoy the holiday season as we get ready to hopefully kick off a successful legislative session on the 10th of January. Thank you so much.